Welcome to the Review Journal's Sports Betting Spotlight on College Football Week 11. We're here at the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas Sportsbook on the Vegas Strip with handicapper Kelly Stewart and CG Technology Sportsbook Vice President Matt Holt. We'll give you our 3 picks each in college, including our best bet. And to lead us off would be Kelly. Kelly, who are your first 2 plays this week?
You know, I know this is not the most appealing game on the board, but I'm going to take the Baylor Bears plus 7.5. I think the Bears have a chance here to get their second win of the season. They're coming off as 8-point favorites against Kansas. Absolutely blew them out 38-9 last week. I don't think Baylor's as bad as their 1-8 record showed. And the Red Raiders aren't as good as their record does show. They have failed to cover 4 of their last 5 games. They also have TCU on deck. I think this is the Bears' chance to kind of capitalize and get that home win. My next play is going to be Mississippi State plus 14.5. I'm going to wait to bet this one. I think it may even get a little bit higher. Hopefully get maybe even a 15.5 here. Bettors tend to remember what they saw last, guys. And what they saw last was this Bulldogs team down at half to UMass. Absolutely terrible as 30-point favorites almost. But they have covered 4 of their last 5 at home. Not to mention, this Bama team is off a very hard-fought win over LSU. And this is just kind of a spot where you're going to pay the premium for Bama. I think this line is just a tad bit too high. But like I said, wait on it a little bit.
Matt, who are your first 2 plays?
I'm going to go with Wake Forest. And this time of year, motivation is really important. These are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, and they can't get up for every game of the season, so motivation becomes more of a key than ever. Here we go, Wake Forest, 1 win away from bowl eligibility. People say, well, what does it mean to go to a bowl game? How about 11 extra practices? And those practices are really important to these coaches, laying the foundation for next year. Wake Forest already whipped Boston College on the road, beat Louisville. This is a team that's had some really solid wins, covered against Clemson. I expect them to come out, play hard behind senior quarterback John Wofford here, and basically what's a pick'em game, getting 1 point, in a game where the power ratings say they should be about a 3-point favorite. Syracuse quarterback Eric Dungy, too, hobbling around on a bad foot. I'm going to lean Wake Forest here. Another motivation game, Army. Army clinched a bowl berth for the second consecutive season for the first time since 1984, 1985. Already agreed to and committed to a spot in the Armed Forces Bowl. So once they committed to that spot, they only had 2 things left to do this regular season: beat Air Force and beat Navy. And they just beat Air Force last week. Coming off that huge win, they have nothing left to do, nothing left to prove in this regular season, except to beat Navy in that finale and then go on to the Armed Forces Bowl, which they already committed to. Duke, on the other hand, needs 2 more wins to become bowl eligible. This is a big-time motivational mismatch. Army coming off Air Force. I'm going to lay the small 2.5 with the Duke Blue Devils.
All right, I'm going with South Carolina over Florida. South Carolina at home by a touchdown. Florida is, they've seen many better days there. One of the worst Florida teams in years. They've lost 4 straight, 2-7-2 against the spread slide, coming off one of their worst losses in a long time, 45-16 at Missouri. They have a lot of key injuries. South Carolina, hung in there against top-ranked Georgia, lost 24-10 between the hedges. They're on a 7-2-1 against the spread uptick. One of the top defenses in the country. In Florida, for all the offensive firepower of the past, number 113 in the country in offense, only 20.6 points a game. Also going to go with Iowa State, back at home, getting 6.5 from an Oklahoma State team off a very emotionally draining loss to Oklahoma in the biggest game of the year. Iowa State's covered the last 2 in the series, and they have a tough defense. They upset Oklahoma. They beat TCU at home a couple weeks ago, 14-7. And they just held the high-powered West Virginia offense at 20 points in a 2016 loss. I think they're going to be able to hang with a deflated Oklahoma State team at home. Let's move on to our best bets. Kelly, I know you're headed to the Catholics versus Convicts showdown in Miami. We'll get to that later, but what's your best bet?
My best bet this week is going to be Auburn plus 2.5. When this line came out, I was like, wait, what? All the hype surrounding this Georgia Bulldogs team, and they're only laying 2.5 at Auburn. I think this is going to be their toughest test of the season. The Tigers, though, have kind of flown quietly under the radar. They do have their 2 losses against pretty good teams, but I think Auburn's defense is going to be the difference maker here. You have the number 9 defense in the country in points allowed, 17th in sacks. Listen, if they can stop the run, they can win this game.
Matt, who's the big money maker?
I'm going to go with Arkansas, plus 17 and a half out of LSU. LSU coming off a really physical, difficult game against their arch rival, Alabama, last week. Didn't get that job done. But here's an LSU team now, completely out of the SEC title race. Nothing really to play for this season. On the other side of the ball, again, we find an Arkansas team hungry for that extra win to pick up a bowl win. Austin Allen's been dealing with shoulder injuries, the quarterback for Arkansas. He's as healthy as he's been in 6 weeks finally. Arkansas has won 2 out of the last 3 games versus LSU. This is actually a big rivalry, and a bigger rivalry to Arkansas than it is to LSU. LSU always struggles coming off the Bama game. I'm going to take the 17 and a half points with the Arkansas Razorbacks.
All right, there's a lot of big matchups this week, and one of the biggest is Notre Dame at Miami, where they used to call that one in the 80s, the Catholics versus the Convicts, and Jimmy Johnson and Lou Holtz, and this is the biggest matchup since then with both teams ranked. The Irish, a big bounce back year. They only have 1 loss by 1 point to Georgia. Miami has a 13-game winning streak since losing last year at Notre Dame. But they had a big impressive win last week over Virginia Tech, but they've had a lot of close calls. I think their luck runs out here against the Irish. You get a discounted price here against Notre Dame with Miami coming off that big win, and Notre Dame just laying a field goal. And I think the difference is going to be the running game, where the Irish with Josh Adams and Brandon Wimbush, number 5 rushing attack in the country, and Miami struggles on run defense, 67th in the country. Going with Notre Dame to pull this one out down in South Beach. Have a good time, Kelly, and that's our spotlight in college football.